we're gonna point this thing at a tree for the first clutch engagement, because if this thing runs away, I'm gonna run out of runway real quick. Most of the tools are put away now. Oh, and gee, yeah, why is there an axe out? What do you do to work on an ATV with an axe? That's an excellent question. But really, bud, what? I mean, this blaster got blasted. It's you smoked this thing. Alright guys, today could be the day that we get this blaster up and running, which would be fantastic. Got the motor in, everything's really buttoned in. What we have left is the carb. And if you refer back to, or remember back to some of the earlier videos, I had rebuilt the carb, cleaned the carb, but it was still leaking fuel. And really there's two reasons for that. One is the float, and really the other is where the needle sits, if the gasket's there worn out. So we're going to take a look at that today. So we have a carb rebuild kit from Freedom County. We're going to open this up, but the big piece I'm interested in here is the gasket around the float needle. We do have a new float needle. So let me open this up and I'll show you what we're working with here. So you saw the symptom that the fuel, this is the overflow nipple here, and when the fuel's turned on the quad, fuel just flows out. And you can see people down here, they've just really buggered out the screw here, cranking this down, trying to turn off fuel flow. This is just for draining the bowl. You can crank this all day, but if the fuel doesn't shut off flowing in, it'll continue to fill in. It'll go over the overflow tube, which I'll show you, and keep running out. You can crank that all day. It won't make a difference. So fuel flows in and fills the bowl, which eventually pushes these floats up, and as they go up, it pushes the needle in, which that needle sits on the other side of the fuel inlet here, shuts off the fuel flow. If it doesn't shut off the fuel flow, fuel raises, it kind of fills up this tube until it goes over the edge here and ultimately flows out the bottom of the bowl. Excuse me, this tube here. Gets too high, it flows out this. That's why you can crank down on this all day long. This does not shut off this tube. So to fix this today, one of two things. One option, you know, that this float needle is all goofed up. This one looks really good. So one thing people will do is they'll bend this tab. They'll bend this up, and that way the floats will shut off lower rather than higher. Really, you should never need to touch this. This doesn't go out of factory spec. People goof with them, but then getting them back right, you really shouldn't have to touch that. The side I'm interested in today is going to be down in here. This float needle should pinch up and shut off fuel flow, and it isn't. In our rebuild kit is a new float needle. Looks right. And the gasket and everything, or this copper fitting that goes around it. And my thought is that we're leaking around this copper gasket. Either this rubber washer's worn out, or we're just not seating up in here because of some grime, something. I mean, I've cleaned it, but it's not shutting off, so. There's the old one and the new one, and you can see it's pretty grody around there, and the rubber washer really shot. Not a whole lot left to it. presses down nice and easy. I am going to put the new float needle on, even though the old one looks fine. All right, let's put this back together. Let's put this back on the ATV, and then we're ready to turn the fuel on and see if she'll start and idle again. Okay guys, moment of truth on the transmission here. Yeah, time to find out. Got it up on blocks just in case something runs away, because I have not looked at the front brakes, and there's probably a whole thing to go through there, especially because I got to work out this lever, because this aftermarket, there's just no good. But everything's bound up in front on the adjusters, so I'll have to work through that. Did check for spark. We have spark. We have our fluid level in here for our clutch oil. And we're not leaking fuel. So ultimately, after that work, what we needed was not the float needle or the cleaning, but the gasket around the orifice that the float needle goes in was all shot. So fuel is flowing in, it's not leaking, we're good there. I'm actually going to take a moment and check the compression just so I just want to know where we are after all this work, having the head open. Started up fine after sitting 5 years, but I opened everything. So let's check the compression. Cold, we're at 100. 100's lower than I would have wanted to see. So the clutch needs an adjustment. The clutch does not disengage. To do that, we got to pop this cover off so we can get at the clutch, and we've got to adjust the push rod so that that is just right. Again, we got that bent actuator arm on the other side, so we've got to goof with that a little bit. Yeah, so we'll drop the pedal here, and you know, we'll drain, we'll take this cover off, and we'll see if we can get that clutch just right. We are so close.
Alright, we have the clutch disengaging at this point. Ultimately, I took the side off there. I did not make an adjustment on that push rod. I adjusted up here a little bit, took a little slack out. I took a flathead screwdriver and worked each plate so they were loose. They were just kind of sticking from sitting. So I have clutch control. Let's work on some brakes and then we're going to go for a ride.
Let's see. We're sitting, everything just needs to be broken out. Oh my goodness, yep. And this side has no return spring. Take the tension off like this side has. And I'll confess, this spring here is not factory. The factory would have stopped here. This is just something that's been found to do something. Kneeling in the snow, my knees are really getting wet. I'm gonna put a tarp down. That's better. I should have thought of using a tarp 3 or 4 years ago. Guys, that's gonna work. Okay, I think she'll stop. Let's go for a ride. If any of you want to know what it's like to work outside in the wintertime on a quad in Vermont, I'll show you the picture. Tarps on the ground, keep your feet out of the snow, fire to keep you warm, tools in the snow, always trying not to lose a wrench somewhere here to find the spring. You're tracking it everywhere. But I think we got it done. Starting, idling, clutch plates are still a little sticky, so we've taken a look at the front brakes, see if we can stop. We're gonna point this thing at a tree for the first clutch engagement, because if this thing runs away, I'm gonna run out of runway real quick. All right, putting my helmet on for this one. Up a little bit. I'm gonna have to reach down and shift by hand because these big boots aren't gonna reach underneath that. First time this thing's about to run under its own power in 5 years. Got some cleanup to do. That's what's left of the tours. Oh boy, guys, here goes. We're in first. Clutch it in, disengaged. We have some brakes. This is going to get in the way of cranking down on anything. That piece there. Second gear. Oh my goodness, that was super exciting. First ride on it. This exhaust is loud as anything. We're gonna do a little quick work on it. Once it cools, we're gonna take the back off here. We're gonna coat this whole seal here with a two-stroke gasket maker that can withstand the temperatures and the fuel. Try and take a little more of that noise down. we don't have a cowl. If we don't have a cowl, you can find a cowl on eBay. If you're lucky, 60 bucks, 90 bucks is more realistic. These headlights look to have bulbs in them, so those could run again. There's still details. Let's grab the grease gun and let's lube the points while that cools down. And we do have to swap this tire around as well, so we're gonna do a little more detail. We'll see how long the legendary moss stays. Something of note, I'm going to put a little Loctite on these threads. That idle screw was working itself back out. Just a touch of blue, so it'll stay. That's why you got to ride and find these things before you hammer it too hard. Alright guys, for the purpose of these videos, there she be. That was a $200 rebuild. That's nothing. Really stuck to real basics, reused anything that we could. It'll go out and ride on the trails now. Start, stop, shifts all the gears. It ain't pretty, but it's starting fine, it's running fine, it's idling fine, it's stopping fine, shifting, all of those things. I mean, ultimately, it could still use some love. Chain, sprockets, the sliders are shot. The little things here and there, some of the plastics, a couple of bolts to take care of. The exhaust is no longer leaking. This has held fine. Just doing some engine gasket around there that's fuel resistant. Can take the heat. So I got to put the rest of my bolts in, put everything back together here. And I've just gone around and checked all the bolts as I've been riding for 30 minutes and looking for leaks. We're gonna watch, but amazingly, that's okay right now. And we got a few other things to deal with like that. Got to put the tank cowl back on, rubber back on. We don't have a cowl for the front. And we're going to clean up some of this wiring, so let's take a little time this afternoon. And then I'm going to send it back to my buddy. So yeah, riding. Oh, and I want to swap that rear wheel. Bugs me. My OCD is killing me that the hub is mounted on the wrong side of the rim, so that when I'm trying to fill the tire, the air nipple's on the inside. Plus it changes the stance, because one of the tires, let me see if I can show you here. Little tough to see here. This one's done correct. Rear wheel's a little wider than the front wheel, and this one flipped around. Again, the angle's really tough, but this one is offset in maybe an inch, maybe even 2 inches, because the center of the rim isn't here. The center of the rim is over here. This needs to be flipped, but the nuts are stripped, but I've got a tool for that. Oh, and look, no cotter pin on that castle nut. Oh, keep finding things. We're gonna deal with that. All right, I'm finishing up, but I gotta call something out, because you know what, I gotta know what happened here. Look at these nerf bars. All right, this side mounts fine, loosen things up so you can get your toe shift on here. You know, did a little cleanup because I couldn't get in, you know, there, a little grinding around the edge, you know, a little anti-seize in, bolts in, fine. All looks nice. This side, these tabs were bent up. Look at the angle pushing all the way back here, and it is just bent to all heck down in there. Whole thing, if it was perpendicular to this bar, it would be about like that. This side's bent in a ½ inch. This whole thing is just rounded out. What the heck did you land on
But if you landed on something, I think it was caved the other way. Did you land on the outside? Just, what the heck? So to get it in, I have a longer bolt. I think it's an M10, 1 1/4 pitch, so I can reach in, draw it in a little bit, or at least get enough of a grip so this will stay on, stay safe. And then the nerfs are on. But really, bud, what? I mean, this blaster got blasted. You smoked this thing. Okay, guys, just about done. Did get that, did get those nerf bars on now, so we're cleaning up. Most of the tools are put away now. Oh, and gee, yeah, why is there an axe out? What do you do to work on an ATV with an axe? That's an excellent question. I had to use the axe to pound this thing to bend. I should have just used my maul, but I was able to get a longer, probably an 1.5 inch M10, 1 1/4 bolt in here to get past the bend. So we are on. The nerfs are on. There we go. Nets. Oh, I'm gonna get that axe and bend those tabs down. That's why the netting was so tight you couldn't get your foot under there. Those are all bent up. Gee whiz, what were you doing? But that's it, guys. That's all the pieces back on. All the pieces that we had, with the exception of 2 replacement front plastics, full fairing plastics. So until next time, enjoy, stay warm, Merry Christmas, and stay safe in 2022.